Metallica. They are without a doubt the most successful metal band of all time. This band has a career that spans nearly 40 years now. With their debut album coming in 1983, they have since released 10 studio albums since then. I'm going to go through each and every one today and rank them in order from my least favorite Metallica album to my absolute favorite Metallica album. The peak of this band's career happened before I even drew my first breath. So I think my list is going to be a bit different than the conventional Metallica fan for the simple fact that I was not around in the 1980s. Sit back and let's go through each Metallica album right now. Now, it's like I said, Metallica has 10 studio albums. 9 of them I absolutely love, and then there's one Metallica album that I really just don't like at all. I don't listen to at all, and that album is coming in at number 10, aka my least favorite Metallica album, is Load. And I'm not gonna sit here and be negative on this album too hard or anything. I don't want to rip on it. It wasn't what I'm into. There's nothing on this album that I enjoy. I don't listen to any of these songs, and I'm gonna leave it at that and just move on here to number 9. Number 9 is where we get into the albums that I enjoy. Number 9 is one that a lot of people hate on, probably the most hated Metallica album of all time. My number 9 is Saint Anger. And the band Metallica was in such a weird time when they recorded this album. They were on the verge of breaking up. There was a lot of tension between members of the band. If you watch the Some Kind of Monster documentary, you really get a good sense of how messed up things were at this time. But they still came together and they made Saint Anger. And you know, there's a couple songs that I enjoy listening to. The title track, Saint Anger, is cool. Some Kind of Monster is a good song. Other than that, I don't listen to much for the simple and obvious reason: the snare drum. I don't know what Lars was thinking. It was a very unique thing. He turned the snares off on his snare drum and it just sounds like absolute dog shit. And that's the way it is, man. They tried something, it didn't work, and that's that. Anyway, it's my number 9. Let's move on to number 8. And number 8 is where we start to piss people off. Number 8 for me is going to be Kill 'Em All. And I know a lot of people just shit their pants and they're so pissed at me and they're typing in the chat, really mean comments on it. But honestly, man, it's a good album. I enjoy Seek and Destroy, but it was their very debut and they were still kind of in their infancy at this time. And I wasn't around in 1983 to feel how epic this album was for people and how monumental and historic it was for people at the time. For me, I went back and listened to it when they had albums like Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning were already out for me. But let's just leave it at that and move on to number 7. And number 7 for me is Reload. And now I enjoy this album infinitely more than Load. It was a bit different, a bit experimental, or I should say very different than what they were doing at the time. But there's some cool tracks on there. Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire. Ooh. The Unforgiven 2 is on this album. Really cool track. The Memory Remains is a cool song. There's just some good hits on this one, so I enjoyed Reload. Let's move on to number 6 here. Number 6 is Metallica's latest album, their 10th studio album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. And I really enjoyed it. Man. Metallica does not make many albums these days. It takes about 8 years to get albums out from Metallica. And I thought they wrote some really cool, some rock hits on this one. And it's cool that I get to be a part of Metallica release now, because they have not released many albums in my lifetime. So it's very cool to be able to experience it with the fan base that they've grown over the multiple decade career they have, and keep making music, Metallica. Let's move on to number 5. Number 5 is going to be Death Magnetic from 2008. And I was pretty young at this time. I was really in my infancy stages of becoming a huge metalhead and really submersing myself in metal music and metal culture at the time back in 2008. And That's when Metallica released Death Magnetic, and I got to be a part of that release for the first time, and it was really cool, man. There's some really awesome tracks, All Nightmare Long and Cyanide and The Unforgiven 3 and The Day That Never Comes is such a beautiful song. I really enjoyed Death Magnetic, man. Let's keep moving on to number 4 here. And now we're getting into the big boys here. Number 4 is Ride the Lightning. Ride the Lightning is an incredible album. You know, songs like For Whom the Bell Tolls are amazing, and Fade to Black. Like, there's just so much beautiful music written on this album. For me, going back in time and listening to all the music that Metallica released in the 80s, I really felt like they took a massive step forward, going from Kill 'Em All into Ride the Lightning. I find songwriting, the riffs, the structure of the songs, just everything seemed to improve drastically when Ride the Lightning came out. And so I have such an appreciation for this album. Moving on to number 3. Number 3 is, again, you can't go wrong with all these 80s thrash metal albums. My number 3 is And Justice for All, featuring one of my absolute favorite songs of all time, One. The guitar riff in One, when I first started to learn the guitar at a young age, one of the very first riffs I ever asked my instructor to teach me was One by Metallica. The riffs on And Justice for All are second to none. It's incredible. The riffs in Eye of the Beholder and the frayed ends of Sanity and Blackened, and it's an incredible piece of music. I put it at 3 because there are 2 Metallica albums that I'm in absolute love with, and it was very hard to pick one, but I feel confident about my answer here. So there's only 2 albums left. You guys probably know which 2 they are. Let's start with number 2 here, and then we can get into really pissing people off with my number 1 pick. Number 2 is Master of Puppets. And it's very difficult putting this at number 2, because I honestly feel like this is the greatest metal album of all time. So it's like, how do you have the belief that this is the best metal album ever written, but you have it at number 2? And it's very simple. This list is my personal favorite list. This list is my personal favorite. So, you know, a lot of people consider Master of Puppets the greatest metal album of all time, and who can blame them? With the title track, Master of Puppets, what a anthem, man. The structure of that song, the guitar riffs, the guitar solos, the bridge, everything about it is just incredible. Then you have songs like Battery, which is just another epic one, and Welcome Home Sanitarium, such a beautiful song. And then I love the instrumental track Orion. If you just want to sit back and relax and listen to amazing guitar riffs, you put on Orion and you just enjoy the journey, man. Master of Puppets is one of the most iconic metal albums of all time. You guys don't need me to tell you that. We all know it. It's been around for nearly 40 years now, and its legacy speaks for itself, man. This is just my personal list, and there's one album and one album only by Metallica that I can put above Master of Puppets, and it's my personal favorite. And it's ironic because this album received such criticism at the time of its release, and people were so heartbroken when Metallica released this album. And it's just so funny to me that all these years later, when I sit down and I go through my favorite Metallica albums, the conclusion I arrive at is without a doubt that my favorite Metallica album of all time is the Black Album. I love the Black Album, man, because I wasn't around in the 1980s when I had this perception of what Metallica should be and how they should sound. And so I wasn't around for the disappointment that some like elitist thrash metal fans had at the time of the release of the Black Album. I just got to learn songs like Enter Sandman from the radio and whatnot, and then go back and consume the entire Metallica catalog on my own with a neutral perspective on the music that they were releasing. So, as if I needed any justification to justify my own personal list, track 1 on the Black Album is Enter Sandman, which I would probably consider to be the most well-known rock anthem of all time. So right off the bat, track 1 on the Black Album is the greatest rock song of all time, Enter Sandman. Classic, everybody in the world knows it, everybody loves it. It's a banger, it's a anthem, but I guess for people at the time when it was released in 1991, they had this perception on how Metallica should sound, and I just was able to come in years later and listen to it just from a neutral perspective, and I love the Black Album. You guys know the track list, so I don't have to go through each song. You guys know the songs. If you guys did make it all the way to the end of this video, please drop a like, subscribe to this channel if you're into metal music. I love making videos like this. This is just fun to come on here and talk about a band that I enjoy. And if you made it this far in the video, please let me know your favorite Metallica album. And if you want to get really juicy, leave a full top 10 list. That would be sweet. Let's have some positivity in the comment section. Don't just be mean to me. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. My name is Johnny Screams. I love Metallica, and I'm out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.